It takes a lot of work.
Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to our council meeting tonight. You're probably wondering what's going on a little bit. Unfortunately, our mayor is out of town this evening, and our vice mayor is not feeling well, so he is also not here. So I'm starting tonight with the meeting, and I am going to take nominations from the council for someone to chair the meeting as Mayor Pro Tem tonight. So if there is a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we have John Clarici chair the. Well,
Okay.
since he just retired last year, I think he's probably.
He's fresh and knows what he's doing. And
He's
is
fresh.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and with that, I'll turn the time over to Mayor Pro Tem Clarici.
Back by popular demand. Okay, well, welcome everybody to the City of Placerville regular City Council meeting, April 10th, 2018. If you'd all rise and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. See if I remember how to do this. Okay. Would you like to call the roll?
Roll call.
Vice Mayor Acuna will be noted as absent. Councilmember Borelli,
Here.
Councilmember Clarici,
Here.
Mayor Thomas will be noted as absent. Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Thank you.
All righty. Announcements and presentations to the public. Brief comments by City Council. Do we have any brief comments? Okay. You're not obligated. I
trying
know
to
it's
think.
tough for a politician, but you're not obligated to say anything. So.
Not right now.
Okay.
I was going to thank somebody for doing something. I can't remember what it was. It's all right.
Okay, all right. I don't. Well, thank you for this great honor. Okay, now to closed session report. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Tonight in closed session, the council denied and rejected the claim of Kendon Nelson unanimously, noting, however, that Vice Mayor Acuna and Mayor Thomas were absent.
Okay, great, thank you. Would somebody like to adopt this agenda?
I would. I
Okay.
move for adoption.
Second.
It's all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ceremonial matters. Okay, the fun stuff begins. Proclamation for National Volunteer Appreciation Week, April 15th to 2018. So I need to find that. Is there somebody here from that group first? Okay, fine. Proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville proclaiming April 15th to the 21st, 2018 National Volunteer Appreciation Week. Volunteers are fantastic, and we should always try to help them out. And we have a whole bevy of volunteers sitting over here to my right. There you go. Thank you. The cities like Placerville really wouldn't operate very well, even from the governmental standpoint and the city standpoint, and just from the community standpoint, without volunteers. From anything from like Little League to other sporting groups to things like Goldbug Park to our service clubs, people volunteer and just do wonderful things on a daily basis. So all this the week of April 15th to the 21st, if you see a volunteer, pat them on the back and say thank you, maybe give them a big hug, and that's that. Okay. Oh, there's something else here. Oh, I have a list. I'm going to read it. It's not that long, but it's really good. Let's see here. Well, this is one. Okay, I'm going to say one thing. Many, of course, all of the committees and commissions that help the city function are volunteer groups. So these people have volunteered to be on like the Planning Commission and the Park and Rec Commission and the Economic Advisory Committee. All of them are volunteer groups. So that's something you tend to forget about sometimes when you think about volunteers. So here we go. Recreation and Parks Commission, Community Pride. Goldbug Park Development Committee, Goldbug Park Tour Guides. Youth Basketball Coaches Friends of El Dorado Trail, Eagle Scouts, Placerville Rotary Club, Placerville Lions Club, Placerville 2030 Club, Placerville Kiwanis Club. I'm sure there's other clubs out there, and forgive me for not saying who you are. Community cleanup volunteers, over 1,500 hours. And you ought to see some of the hours here. Youth basketball coaches, we've estimated that they provide 3,200, almost 3,300 hours of volunteer service coaching youth basketball. That is just a phenomenal thing. Community Pride, 3,500 hours, so just slightly more than the coaches. So keep it up. It's not a competition, Kathy. Anyway, thank you so much for everyone. We have an estimate here. We just gave them minimum wage. If you gave every one of these hours a minimum wage job, hourly wage, it would come to $166,000. And that is truly remarkable value added to our community. So like I said, maybe if you see a volunteer, pat them on the shoulder and buy them their favorite adult beverage.
How
I think
about,
that would
how
even
about
be
if
better.
you see a volunteer, be a volunteer?
Well, that's true too. But usually if you see a volunteer, you probably are one. Anyway, volunteers, fantastic. We love you. There's that right there.
Yep.
Okay. Now to some volunteers that are actually here. I will get into this. What we have here actually is the recognition of Dean Reed. And I want to just say it's too bad that Councilmember Acuna could not be here. He certainly knows and understands your work far better than I would ever dream of doing it. But he unfortunately could not be here tonight. So I'm just going to read the certificate of recognition presented to Dean Reed in grateful recognition for extremely dedicated service, volunteering countless hours of personal time and talent to Goldbug Park and the community, and it's dated April 10th. And it's going to be signed by Mayor Thomas. And I have a few things here. The city of Placerville traces its heritage to the California Gold Rush and the countless number of miners and fortune seekers who found their treasures in the streams, hills, and valleys surrounding this community. It's funny, there were people poking around. I mentioned it today to someone. There were people poking around this part of the world something like 13 years before the Civil War started. You know, we think of things kind of going from east to west, and yet everything just sort of jumped to the west all of a sudden. The world rushed in, as it were. The city of Placerville continually strives to preserve and promote its unique and significant place in the history of the Golden State, the United States, and the world. The city of Placerville has successfully established Goldbug Park and Mine as a city location dedicated to promoting and celebrating and preserving California's gold rush history, and thus ensuring its mining legacy is passed on to future generations. Goldbug Park and Mine is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is designated by the state of California as a place of historic interest. Goldbug Park and Mine annually engages, entertains, and educates thousands of students and visitors through its historic mine tours, museum, stamp mill, and blacksmith shop, and exhibits. Through the creative, enthusiastic, and generous work of its imaginative volunteers over the years, the park has developed, expanded, and improved its educational programs and experiences. And one extremely dedicated Goldbug Park Mine volunteer has freely donated countless hours of personal time and talent to the park and the community, and that would be Mr. Reed. So, Goldbug Park is one of those things, you know, when you go outside of Placerville and you tell people where you're from, I always go, well, I'm from Placerville. And they go, oh, I just love that town. It's wonderful. And I go, of course it's wonderful. It's Placerville. And then they almost always say, and you've got that little mine, and it's so cool. And it's amazing how many people, and I have been in a lot of very different kinds of places, all over the world, in fact. And Goldbug Park is actually known to a lot of folks. So it is a huge, just a huge thing for this community, and certainly speaks well to the hard work and dedication of the volunteers who make it happen. Otherwise, there really wouldn't be a Goldbug Park. So, Mr. Reed, come on down.
I'm going to preach to the choir here, but I think we're all volunteers anyway.
Mr. Reed,
But-
could you talk into the mic so we can all hear you?
We need more volunteers. I realize, not only at Goldbug Park, but I know we need volunteers all around town. Goldbug Park for the last 20 years has been where I've been doing it. I've felt a need to do it. I love doing it, and I'll keep on doing it just as long as I possibly can. But, ring the bell for all of us, because we need more of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
I just wanted to add a couple of, he did acknowledge the rest, but I wanted to acknowledge
You go
all the
right ahead.
other folks that are in the audience, and, oh, you were going to do that?
go ahead.
Sorry, okay, well, we both can. But I just want to say how much they do for this, for our town, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart. And once again, last year had the privilege of going over to visit our Japanese sister city, and the folks from Goldbug Park gave me something to take over, and it's now in the museum over there in our sister city in Warabi. And they were just so thrilled to hear all about it and to get this memento from us. So thank you again.
Thank you. What are the other volunteers? I kind of brushed past that. Are there other volunteers here? Well, okay, there's community prides out there. I can see them. They actually do a lot with very few people. It's just certain anyway.
What do they do?
They do prideful things in our community.
Like the flower,
All the flower
all the
beds,
all the flower beds and all the.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff all the way around. Thank you very much. Okay, that was fantastic. Public comment, brief, non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from taking acting on any items not listed in the agenda except by special action of the city council under specific circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. We will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record, although you are not required to. Follow the golden rule. Don't say anything you wouldn't want to have said about yourself. Do we have any written communication, sir?
None.
Okay. So we will open up the microphone to comments.
The roses.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville, and I wanted to give a shout out to our police department for their officers that are at the schools. When I go by the high school, very often I see the patrol car there, and occasionally I see the officer with the students. Most of the time the patrol car is empty, so I know that our officer is out interacting with the students, and I think it's wonderful. So I'm really glad we have that program in Placerville.
Well, thank you. Yes. We love our police department. I couldn't imagine not having them. Okay. Next. Oh.
Oh dear. I won't tell you. Anyway. Murray Storton, Placerville resident. I didn't speak 2 meetings ago when the mural was brought up for discussion. And I somehow thought it would be discussed last council meeting, but it's gone back, I understand, to the El Dorado Arts Council for some modification. I'm a muralist and a Burning Man artist, so I'm extremely interested in public art and bringing public art to Placerville. There's so many artists in this community and surrounding community. And I thought a number of the things that were said I wanted to comment on. The idea that every mural or artistic event has to include the historic touchstones of Placerville, I think is not a great idea. I think that Placerville is definitely a historic town. That's very obvious by being here. It's one of the reasons we're here. But it's also many other things. And so what I liked about that mural was the process that was used to create it, which was having the children give their ideas for what can you do in Placerville. Well, I guess the kids probably aren't going to be all that excited about the railroad that isn't here anymore or the bell tower, but what can you do? Play baseball, walk around. So the other thing was, it was said that you can't see that wall from the trail. Well, as it turns out, you can. Only walking in one direction, though. And the reason I know this is because I come in on the bus. So I walk from there to my house regularly. And I'm like, oh, no, you have a wonderful view when you're going to the bus station from my house. So it is available to pedestrians. The other thing was that I really liked the mural in the sense that it had basically 4 panels, which meant that you could just catch a glimpse of it and get some meaning out of it. Also, that's a really dingy underpass and needs some color, in my humble opinion. So I researched the artist. He's done other murals here. He's really well recognized in the area. He does a fabulous job. And as I certainly hope that we keep that alive and can consider doing that. That's my feeling anyway.
Well, thank you very much. And actually, when we're done with the public comment, we can comment.
Let's
little bit
address it,
on
yeah.
the process.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anyone else wish to speak?
So, I'm Chris Benteen, and I am part of the Founding Fathers. Back in the covered wagon days, I was born Christine Clifton, so I'm related to half the county, I guess. I just came back from leaving in '80, so I've been gone for quite a few years, just to see these wonderful roads and how they are. Sorry, you have my pictures, and Patty just took the wind out of my sails a little bit because I found out that the city line for the roads is right there at where this road is being destroyed daily, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. I've been here a year and a half, and I have a 97 Dodge pickup, and I rode a mule for 17 years, and that's why. And I've taken really good care of it, and it only had 2 little cracks in the dashboard, and now it has holes because of Spring Street and because of Manor Drive at the bottom, and these huge deep holes that just even have gotten bigger over the last month with the rains and stuff. So I'm just pleading with you that if you haven't driven over there in a while, even though you know it's bad, you should. You really need, I invite you to drive from 49 to Bedford and come up tunnel to the bottom of Manor. And Mr. Clarici, I'm Chris, the one you talked to on the phone about the water leak that one time. And there is a water leak. Oh, it did? And there is a water leak right there as well at the bottom of Manor now that has not stopped. So
it's not. You know what? I've lived there for
yes, you have
a zillion years, and I'll tell you, it's all underground. It's part of what goes on Manor Drive, and all those rainstorms we've had and everything. It's still. It'll stop.
It's draining more than the city water leaking out.
It's not a pipe leak. It's
right. Okay. Well, I appreciate you listening to me and seeing my pictures and the plight. And if number 41 is the last one on your list here of what work gets done with measurable money, can you kind of move it up a little? Please? And then I have one more little statement to make about the Clay Street project. I truly, with all my heart, believe that America these days destroy history too often. Europe wouldn't be what it is today if they did that, and we wouldn't have history to look at. And I think Placerville is so important. These are my roots, definitely, but it's becoming more and more special. And I believe that intersection is the hub of foot traffic and the heart of Placerville. And if you put all that in there, it's going to destroy it. And I pray that you can stop it. I'm going to do everything I can to try. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Nice to see you.
Yes. Okay. Mural. We met with the Arts, Mayor Thomas and I met with the Arts Council after that meeting with Andrew Vanderschmoot. Vanderschmoot? Yes. Anyway, and they are going back and noodling around with it. And hopefully the comments that you heard Yeah, there's a lot of, well, we need, you need to have like the 5 things in there, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. A little bit of it was just the process. This body almost never does anything on the first time, and to have it sort of rolled out to us that way was a bit challenging, just from a kind of a process and historic process standpoint. I thought what the kids did was fantastic. But anyway, they're noodling around with it, and you're right. The artist is very good, and obviously there's examples of his work around town, and apparently they are talking. So we hope that they bring us back something that we can in fact embrace and talk about, and there's going to be a process around that as well. So yes, Ann, go ahead.
Mayor Clarici.
Yes.
This was not the Arts Council project.
Well, that's true.
This project was created by, is it Health and Human Services through the county?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they, my understanding is that they were advised to go to the Arts Council. So that's how the Arts Council got involved. And so it's not, I really want to emphasize it was not an Arts Council project. And so they kind of came, and the murals that were presented to us as part of that grant that they had applied for had by law to pertain to Health and Human Services. I mean, it had to, be with the, so that's how all that happened. And I think there was just a whole lot of misinformation. And but my understanding is, yes, they are going to work on it. There have been a lot of ideas since this all came about, and a lot of the unfortunate part, they wanted to keep it a secret, and the artist didn't want to let it out, and so a lot of people didn't get to see the image until, so it was kind of like John said, it was just presented at the last minute. So there wasn't a lot of time, and I think what they've thought about, at least what I've heard, and I could be wrong, but they wish that they had done it in the presentation a little bit differently and gotten, a little bit more, comments from the folks, and then they would have been able to. So, but I don't think they've dropped it, from what I understand. And so I think it would be fortunate, since you are an artist too, if you want to give your name, that maybe you could be a part of the presentation. But so anyway, I just wanted to make that clear.
And that's a good point. Anyway, all those food groups are getting together and they're looking at stuff, and they'll come back to us.
Food groups?
That's what I call them. Okay. Roads, yes. Actually, Spring Street is on our list of things to do for the summer, we hope.
Guessing that you're gesturing towards me, and I'm happy to answer.
In that general direction. That's
yes.
Yes.
Yes, Spring Street is included as a proposed CIP project for the 2018-2019 fiscal year, as well as Canal Street and Pacific Street.
Okay. So we will get close to where you are, and I can't make promises. They would be valueless actually up here. So, but we are working on it, and we're working through things. So those things will be taken care of. Some of them will be taken care of in the summer. It'll be a process, and not every road will get gotten to certainly as quick as probably if you happen to live on that road would like. So
the health department there too. Sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. We can chat some more. You have my phone number, and everything. Okay. And as for Clay Street, that's a process in the process, and I don't want to say a word because we're in the middle of a process. And that's going to be when are we done with the comments on the? It's like the 18th or something.
Yeah, the closing of the comment period will be 5 o'clock on April the 18th.
5 o'clock on April 18th. So close of business on April 18th. Okay. So I think that's it. Is there anybody else which wishes to chat with us? Okay, great. Consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. Would anybody like to pull anything?
I don't, and I'll make a motion that we.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. And a second?
Oh, yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Would anybody from the public wish to ask a question about anything on our consent calendar? Oh, okay.
Yes, you're stuck with me because there's a lot of things on the.
This is your agenda.
I am really glad to see the Sierra Tank bypass and the Snell School pressure regulating valve finally make it up to getting close to implementation. So, yay for our engineering department on that one, because it's been on the measure. It was on the original Measure H committee list of things we need to get done, and now that we're Measure H and L, volunteers, by the way.
Yes, I mentioned.
And I'm really glad to see this happen.
Very good. Well, thank you. And we are too. And everyone else should be. Okay. Anyone else wish to comment on our consent calendar? Okay, we'll bring it back here. Okay. Any other questions from up here? Comments? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins. Aye. Thank you.
Okay, we did not pull any items from the consent calendar. There are no ordinances. There are no public hearings. Discussion and action items. Adopt a resolution approving a $5,000 budget appropriation from the General Fund contingency for unforeseen expenditures to coordinate activities associated with the Amgen Tour of California scheduled for May 18th, 2018. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item we're excited about. The Amgen Tour of California bike race will be coming here on May 18th. If you're familiar with the bike race and how that works, we'll get about maybe a 2-3 minute view of it, to depend on where you're standing and how far away you can see them. So it's not something you're going to see a lot of, but we looked at it and recognized that there will be a lot of focus on it. It's an international event that will be coming through our city. And so we took some action to put together a committee that has been meeting for about 6 weeks now, I think. We're meeting tomorrow. That will be our third meeting. We've been meeting every 2 weeks, and we put together some things, some activities, et cetera. The downtown area, from Sacramento Street to Cedar Ravine, approximately, at least to Bedford Street, will be closed first thing in the morning. No parking allowed on the street. So working with PDA as well as the remainder of the committee, we talked about, well, why don't we do some other activities on Main Street since it's closed, and then invite people out to come out, and that would be an excellent place to view the race from. So we put that together, and we're planning some things to go along with that. It means there are some costs involved. Attached to my staff report, you see a budget that we put together, and this is a maximum budget. I believe that it would be $8,750. We are working on some sponsorships from businesses in the community and et cetera, and we feel pretty comfortable that we'll be able to raise some of that money, but very likely not quite all of it, and hence the request from staff that we be able to look at up to about $5,000 if necessary to fund the remaining items. Example of things that are happening that is included in that cost, you'll see the talk about bunting. We plan on decorating the downtown with some bunting all along Main Street. Some of that cost is being purchased actually by the individual businesses, so that will take care of some of that. And there are other things that are being done too. There's going to be some pre-race activities. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but they're going to do a slow bike race. I think that means you have to ride as slow as you can. So, and whoever loses, I guess, wins. That's how that would work. So there's things like that. Other examples, if you want to ride your bike down that day, they will have a bike valet located in the Round Table Pizza parking lot, so you can ride your bike down, and they will valet it and take care of it while you are down here viewing and taking in the activities. There is going to, I believe that, is it that day, Mary, that is the Bike to Work Day, or is that the week before?
That is that day.
That
yes.
day?
Yes.
So that will be going on also that morning prior to the race. There will be a ride that's going to go from I believe the Mosquito Park and Ride up to the county offices,
yes,
going right down through town. So those are the main things. I know that the schools are very involved. We're going to make a lot of noise. I believe we're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 cowbells that will be given out to people on Main Street. Also, probably an equal number of, they call them thunder sticks. If you're familiar with those, you see them at the sporting events. That the two of our schools, I think both Sierra and Snell School, will be located in the Ivy House parking lot. And that's where they will be cheering from, and they will be cheering the riders on as they come through town up Placerville Drive to Main Street through town to Cedar Ravine, and out Cedar Ravine to Pleasant Valley Road on their way to South Lake Tahoe. So it should be a fun event. Stay tuned. We're doing some promotion of this, so we're going to do some drone video. There will be, we're working on, I think we're going to get it done, a live feed of the event as it comes through town. So if you wanted to watch it on YouTube, it should be a live feed going on to show you as it goes through. We are doing some promotions to invite people and say, hey, come downtown and watch this. Many of our businesses will probably open a little bit early, as like 9 o'clock instead of their normal 10 o'clock, those that open later, so that there will be things to do down there. So a little bit of a, what do I want to call it, lifestyle fair or health and safety fair will be going on around the bell tower, a couple of booths with talking about how to be healthy. So there will be things going on, so we invite the public to come down. So with that, Mayor and Council, I would reiterate the request is to authorize up to $5,000 in funds to use for promoting the event and paying for the activities that I've stated, according to the budget, which is attached to the staff report.
I just wanted to ask you too, it's not going to be just a local, for what I would understand, and I wasn't able to go to the last meeting, but they are going to send out a the tour itself is going to be doing a lot of photography and stuff. So
yes.
I really want to, one of the reasons, really want to say why this is going to go all over the world because people are interested in this Amgen race. And so, and they're going to feature Placerville, Old Hangtown, et cetera. So we are going to get, more play than just on the local station. Yeah,
the day of the race, it is not being filmed live when it comes through Placerville, but they'd have what they call B-roll, which is they go ahead of time and they video it as they're coming through, and then then they add it to when they're showing the actual live race. They show what has happened earlier, so we'll be part of that. So,
right. Yeah. It's very exciting.
Okay.
I just think it's cool. I think it's cool that the kids are involved, and my kids are really excited. They're going to go right by our house, but we'll probably be down here anyway.
Stand out on the front porch?
I know. They probably. I'm like, no, there's more down there.
You can hand them lemonade. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a great thing, and it's cool. The community's really coming around at the PDA and other folks, the chamber, and everybody's really getting behind it. We actually have some agenda items later on that kind of relate to this whole thing. So I think it's great, and our inclusion in it is well worth the $5,000, I think. Does anybody wish to comment on this item?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem John Clerici and Council. I think it's a great idea. It's going to be very exciting, and the fact that they could come through ahead of time and video a little of the community and make it attractive to people watching. I wondered, I know it mentions Marshall Hospital and the county and the chamber, and I just wondered, I couldn't get a sense from the budget what other organizations are helping fund this, or is it basically the responsibility of the city?
The county is involved also, the county, the city, and then we're working on some sponsorships from private businesses too. So we're reaching out as wide as we can. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is. Anyone else wish to comment? All right.
I'd like to move option number 1 and approve the funding request.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clerici?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Well, thank you very much. 12.2, Receive and file a letter from Don Ashton, CAO, El Dorado County, and provide conceptual approval of funding for a countywide homeless coordinator for $20,000 per year for 2 years. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, the last meeting, was it, or the one before, Daniel Del Monte from the county did a presentation regarding homelessness in the county. And he didn't come out and really make the request, but he hinted at the idea that they were going to hire a homeless coordinator. I had been approached previously by Mr. Ashton from the county regarding this and a request, would we consider it? And I asked, that I told him we definitely recognize the issues and the problems that we have with homelessness, and that we would be interested in exploring if there are options that come up that can help us work on the problem. And so he has sent this letter that is attached to my report. It is a request that they have put together to fund a homeless coordinator for 2 years. And you recall Daniel Del Monte talked about briefly what that person would do in working on the continuum of care and the proper recording of data and et cetera that we need in order to apply for additional funding for homelessness. And so that's kind of the general description of what would happen, and we would hope and we would ask for more concrete information going forward in terms of the job description and making sure what would happen with this going forward. The request that they have put through is they are looking at the position would be a contract position at the county, $100,000 a year to pay for those services. And they have approached the county, the city of Placerville, city of South Lake Tahoe, Marshall Hospital, and Barton Hospital in South Lake Tahoe, which would make up the 5 entities, each contributing $20,000 towards the cost of this homeless problem. So with that, I want to tell you that this is, you'll note that this states as a conceptual approval. With your approval and direction tonight, I will include this in our draft budget, which will come forward to you in May. And from there, you can consider it as part of that, and we will try to provide more information as part of that also. So this does not solidify it that, yes, definitely you're going to do it, but it expresses your interest in moving forward, and that you will consider it as we get further details and look at it in your budget in a month now, I guess. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions here?
No.
I don't have any questions, and I'm happy to see that this is just in concept, and that we are going to probably ask for more information and see where this is going to be spent, et cetera. It's a lot of money for all the entities that are named, in mid-year. So anyway, it's certainly something that we need. Something needs to be done. We can't go on like it has been.
Right.
And when you consider that we just spent $70,000 to clean up an encampment, and that was just one. Obviously, something's got to be done. So.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. Anyway, before I make any more comments, would the public like to comment on this item? No.
Murray Storton, Placerville resident. When I looked at this first, I thought we were talking about a position for $20,000, and I went, well, that's a drop in the bucket, and it's not going to do anything, and I can't imagine who you'd get. But the problem is severe and important, and if you're looking at $100,000 as a basic ballpark figure for someone to come in and do this kind of work, that's reasonable, and it's work that needs to be done in this area. If we don't get a handle on it, as you say, I mean, I've run hotels where I had a meth lab in one of the suites that cost us, this is 15 years ago, cost us almost $50,000 to have cleaned up. So really, $20,000 may sound like a lot of money, but given what's going on and our vulnerability to damage by fire, which is my biggest fear in terms of as it relates to homelessness, I think it's well worth the investment.
Thank you. Would anyone else wish to comment?
Good evening again, Kathy Lishman. Yes, I know it's a severe problem, and this is probably a good way to help take care of it. I was kind of surprised to see that the county's share and the city's share, that everybody's being asked, Marshall, Barton, South Lake Tahoe, the city, and the county to put in $20,000, because I could think the county's share should be bigger.
Well, thank you. Anyone else wish to comment on this? Okay. We'll bring it back here. Yes. Oh. Yeah, yes. Although in the big picture, the county does also, they provide a number of other services for the homeless and oriented towards homelessness. So,
Well, everything goes through them because
Well, right.
they have all the services, and so, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request.
okay, I'll second that. I would also like to say too, though, that we will definitely, in our budget process, make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted in terms of exactly what this individual is
Exactly.
going to do and what the outcomes are going to be and what the value added is going to be for the community, both in the city and then outside as well. So, but it's a conceptual agreement, so
Right.
we can discuss it more at the budget workshops. Just another reason to come to one of our exciting budget workshops and participate in that process. So, okay, so I have a motion and I second it. So even conceptually, we don't, no. Conceptual money, we don't need a roll call. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anyone? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. 12.3. Yes, thank you. 12.3. Ooh, this is a long one. We'll see. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Like I said, the highlights. We're adopting a mitigated negative declaration prepared for this project pursuant to the provisions of the California CEQA. Adopting the Upper Broadway Bike Lanes Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program because of CEQA. Approving the Upper Broadway Bike Lanes Project. Approving scope change number 2 with REY Engineers, Inc. Approving amendment number 1. And issues notice to proceed number 4 in an amount not to exceed $38,855 to the consulting services agreement with REY Engineers. Approving a $19,500 budget appropriation from the Sewer Enterprise Fund and unassigned fund balance, and $19,355 budget appropriation in Water Enterprise Fund contingency for unforeseen expenditures for the purposes of utility evaluation were captured in amendment number 1 to the consulting service agreement with REY Engineers, Inc. Mr. Rivas.
I'll be presenting on behalf of Mr. Rivas this evening.
His name's right there.
Good evening, council members. The Upper Broadway Bike Lanes Project and Bike Lanes and Pedestrian Connection Project proposes to construct bike lane facilities along Broadway between Schnell School and Jake Way, Point View Drive, with minor signing and striping to connect to the El Dorado Trail at each end, and strategically located sidewalks, additional pedestrian improvements, and select transit facilities. At the regularly scheduled meeting on May 26, 2015, Council approved a consultant services agreement with REY Engineers in the amount not to exceed $545,473 for environmental and engineering design services for the project. Since that time, the project has been moving forward with public outreach and environmental clearance efforts. The original project scope was for bike lanes only and within the project limits. The city hosted 2 public meetings, one in September 2015, another in November of 2015. It was at these meetings that the city received comment that pedestrian facilities within the project would be supported by the community. Staff then sought after the funding for the pedestrian improvements along the planned bike lane project. Funding for the environmental clearance of this project is comprised of Federal Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Funds, or CMAQ. Federal Active Transportation Program Cycle 2 funds were also obtained for environmental documentation, design, and construction of the bike lane project. To fund the pedestrian connection project, state ATP augmentation funds were applied for and received and allocated through Senate Bill 1 as the funding source for this important community project. The city, via its environmental consultant, has prepared a draft initial study and proposed mitigated negative declaration for the environmental analysis of the project, inclusive of the bike lane and pedestrian improvements. The document was circulated for 30-day public review period, which began on Thursday, February 22nd, 2018, and ended on Friday, March 23rd, 2018. At the conclusion of public review period, the city received 2 comments on the environmental document, which are included and addressed in the final attached ISMND. No comments received required altering the conclusions of the ISMND or that increased levels of impacts or introduced new impacts. Adoption of the MND allows for approval of the project and for the next steps of the project delivery to advance. These steps include the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, actions and Caltrans authorization to begin final design and right-of-way. As project planning is commenced, it was determined by staff that existing condition of the underground facilities within the project limits would need to be evaluated to determine if repair and or replacement would be needed during construction. Amendment 1 to the REY contract accounts for this evaluation effort. Once the evaluation is complete, staff anticipates making a recommendation to fund the utility work through Measure HL in the upcoming 2018-2019 CIP adoption through the annual budget process. Staff's recommendations are outlined in the city manager's report included in your agenda packet, and all documentation has been provided to support this report. This information is also available on the project webpage located through the Engineering Division website. With Council's approval this evening, the project schedule shows a NEPA CE document being finalized in the next week, final design beginning at the end of May 2018, and award of construction contract in September of 2019. That concludes staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff? You don't. Do you have any questions? I don't have any at this time. Would the public like to comment on this item? Well, thank you very much. This is really cool. I'm glad we're moving ahead with this. Bike lanes and some pedestrian facilities on Broadway certainly are needed. I know we have conflicts in that part of the world frequently, and so this would be a welcome addition. Plus, you know, it just shows a little love to that forgotten spot in town, otherwise known as Broadway. So I'm pretty excited by it, and I think this is great. And as always, when I ask, CMAQ funds cannot be used to fill potholes or pave roads or anything like that.
It can only be used for
Correct?
this project, right?
That is correct. CMAQ and the ATP funding sources, both the federal and the state, are programmed specifically to this project and cannot be used on any other areas or facilities within the city.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay.
And you know, this is such a dangerous area up there, and this is something we've needed for years and years. And, you know, we've got the schools up there, and it's just, it's certainly going to be a welcome
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Do I have a
project.
motion? Do you want a motion?
Sure.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second?
And we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
You see, I just had to not do this for like 3 or 4 months, and I'd finally figure out how to run the agenda. It's pretty exciting. 12.4, we're going to adopt a resolution approving a paving construction and contract for Green Valley Road pavement rehabilitation project with Doug Verkamp General Engineering, Inc., in the amount of $110,817. We'll also be asking to be approving a $100,000 budget appropriation in fiscal year 2016-2017 State Transportation Block Grant Program Exchange Revenue Funds for the project. We're approving $24,000 budget liquidation in Measure L funds from the Pacific Street Crosswalk and Hot Patching Project, and approving $24,000 budget appropriation in Measure L funds for the said project. So basically moving those funds from one place to another. And authorizing the city manager excuse me, to negotiate any necessary contract change orders for a not to exceed aggregate amount of $8,183 for the project. Ms. Neves.
Thank you, Councilmember Clarici. The city annually receives $200,000 in Surface Transportation Block Grant Program funds, exchange funds, previously identified as Regional Surface Transportation Program, or RSTP exchange revenues, from the El Dorado County Transportation Commission according to a formula-based distribution policy. The city's pavement management program cites a pavement condition index, or PCI, ranging from 22 to 33 for Green Valley Road. This PCI puts Green Valley Road as a prime candidate for pavement rehabilitation. Green Valley Road is identified as a minor arterial with an average daily traffic of 4,500 vehicles per day and serves as a direct connection to neighborhoods and community facilities. At its meeting held on March 8, 2018, and prior to the city receiving any project bids, the Measure HL Sales Tax Committee approved a recommendation for the City Council to approve a $24,000 Measure L fund budget liquidation from the Pacific Street Crosswalk and hot patching, paving project, and a Measure L budget appropriation in the amount of $24,000 for this project. A note on the Pacific Street exchange or liquidation of funds. The reason for that is we are coming back as part of the annual budget process to propose the Pacific Street complete paving from 2000 or in the 2018-2019 CIP project. The city solicited informal bidding from local contractors, and only a single bid was received from Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in the amount of $110,817.30. Which fell below the engineer's estimate. A paving contract with Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in that amount and a contingency of $8,183 and $5,000 allocated for staff time comprises the project budget in the amount of $124,000, and necessary funding appropriations is also before you this evening for approval, as described in staff's report. If this contract is approved, paving would begin on April 23rd and conclude on May 7th, pending weather and paving temperatures. Notification efforts would precede construction to keep the public informed, inclusive of flyers, Facebook posts on the city's page, and changeable message signs that would be placed on April 16th per the contractor's receive schedule. That concludes staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Okay. Do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay. Would the public like to comment on this? Oh, come on up, Sue.
Sue Rodman, Measure H&L Committee. When Rebecca proposed this to us on our March 8th meeting, everybody was sad to see Pacific Street have to take a back seat, but it does need the whole project done on Pacific Street rather than just a crosswalk, and to move some money across so that we could actually accomplish Green Valley the way it needs to be done is an important thing to do too. So we voted to go ahead and support this, support our engineering department to do this, and I think it will be a good thing. And aren't we glad that we have a contractor, a local contractor, who's willing to work with the city to get these things done?
Right.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone else wish to comment on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back here.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, right ahead.
I
Comment
would
away.
I would like to recognize Sue's comments right now, and I appreciate those. But I also want to recognize her specifically as one of our Measure H, Measure L volunteers.
Yeah. Yes.
She's here.
No, that's huge. Yeah, it's the H&L folks do a really good job helping us ferret through all the facts and figures, and they get the first look at everything and come up with some very nice, tidy proposals. So their work is invaluable.
Well, and
in
not
all of
only
this
that,
process.
when we ask the folks to support the measures, we guaranteed them that there would be an oversight, and
Yeah.
this committee acts as an oversight, and so they give great
Right.
consideration and responses, and it helps us out too. Makes us look good too.
You wouldn't want to trust
We're
us.
doing what we were supposed to, what we said we were going to do.
Yes, I agree. Very much so. Okay. So I will move this item.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Great, thank you. All right, 12.5. Approving a paving construction contract for Placerville Drive pavement rehabilitation project from Ray Lawyer Drive to the undercrossing at Highway 50. Is that supposed to be an overcrossing, or is it an undercrossing? Or I guess it's an undercrossing for the freeway.
The bridge is classified as an overcrossing when it's referencing specifically the road that is doing the overcrossing.
I got it.
So for our case, it depends on what facility you're specifically referencing to. For referencing a local road,
Okay.
it would be the inverse of how Caltrans would reference it.
Okay. All right, just curious. I just saw that. Thank you. Anyway, an undercrossing at Highway 50 with Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in the amount of $102,671, approving a $100,000 budget appropriation in fiscal year 2016-17 State Transportation Block Grant Program exchange revenue funds for the said project, approving $30,000 budget liquidation in Measure L funds from the Canal Street reconstruction project, and approving $30,000 budget appropriation in Measure L funds for the said project. So much like Spring Street, some money from Canal Street is coming over to help this one out. Do not be dismayed. Canal Street will be loved later. Authorizing the city manager to negotiate necessary contract change orders for a not to exceed aggregate amount of $22,328 for said project. Ms. Neves.
Good evening. This item is similar in nature to the previous item with regards to planning and funding. City's pavement management program cites the pavement condition index ranging from 40 to 60 for this segment of Placerville Drive, putting this portion of Placerville Drive as a prime candidate for pavement rehabilitation with preventive maintenance such as crack seal. Placerville Drive is identified as a minor arterial with an average daily traffic of approximately 12,000 vehicles per day and serves as a direct connection also to neighborhoods, commercial and local retail, and community facilities. For those reasons, this project was prioritized for delivery. Just to speak to your point regarding Canal Street, much like Pacific Street, Canal Street is also a planned CIP project for the 2018-2019 budget process. At its meeting held on March 8th, again, the Measure HL Sales Tax Committee approved a recommendation for City Council to approve $50,000 in Measure L funds for this project. Again, a single bid was received for the project from Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in the amount of $102,671.92, which is below the engineer's estimate. The paving contract proposed this evening includes that amount and a contingency of $22,328 along with staff time for a not to exceed project funded amount of $130,000. Necessary funding appropriation and recommendation of $50,000 does not need to be fully utilized for this project, and we can move forward with only utilizing $30,000 of the $50,000 that was originally recommended. If this contract is approved this evening, paving would begin on April 23rd and conclude on May 7th, pending weather and paving temperatures, and this project would be delivered concurrently with the Green Valley Road project. Again, notification efforts would precede construction to keep the public informed, inclusive of flyers, Facebook posts on the city's page, and changeable message signs that will be placed on April 16th per the contractor's schedule. This concludes staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
No questions.
Okay. Any questions over here? I would like to say I think this is a lovely compliment to the work we did last year on Placerville Drive. So it's just continuing that up, working on things, a little preventative maintenance, a very important part of Measure L as well, not just paving new roads or getting new pavement on the ground, but doing that preventative maintenance, which is very important. Would the public like to comment on this? Come on up soon. You could just sit in that one chair right there.
And be closer to the mic, so you wouldn't have to wait as long for me to get here. Sue Rodman, Measure H, Measure L Committee, resident of Placerville. I think that this is great that it's only going to take 30,000 of instead of 50,000. And for both of these projects, I hope that our Measure L signs, Measure HL, Your Dollars at Work signs, will be prominently posted for this work. And good job again for our engineering department and our local contractor.
We are, you know, the local contractor thing is quite an issue. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody else wish to comment on this? No. Okay. The local contracting thing, I work in a lot of communities in Northern California, kind of in more rural areas, where they do not have this, and they literally beg, borrow, and steal to get folks to come and do some of these capital projects for them. The fact that we actually have two tremendous general contractors inside the city limits is such a benefit to this community and to the region as well that it's really remarkable. So we should be very grateful that we actually have this access to this expertise, and certainly Mr. Veerkamp has worked very hard in working with the city to help us get the most bang for our buck. So it's really quite remarkable and should never be taken for granted. Okay, someone want to move this?
Move
I'd
for
like to-
approval.
What do you think?
We
Wow.
both want to move this item. I'll second.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Motion, second. Call the roll.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Thank you very much. You know, I shouldn't say this because we will grind to a halt right here, but I looked at this agenda and went, wow, we're going to be here a while. Here we are. Anyway, let's see here. 12.6, correct? Yes. Adopt a resolution approving a service contract with Comfort King Heating, Air, and Solar in the amount of $24,431 to replace 2 failed heating and air units at Town Hall, and approving a budget appropriation in an amount not to exceed $30,000 from the general fund contingency for unforeseen expenditures for the said project. Mr. Ewell.
Thank you, Council. The purpose of this recommendation is to provide adequate heating and air conditioning within the Town Hall building. Over the holidays, 2 out of the 3 heating and air units failed due to faulty heat exchangers and failed condenser. Parts are no longer available for both units and are out of warranty. The council chambers are being serviced by 1 lone remaining auxiliary unit for the building. There is no heat or air conditioning in the upstairs. The scope of the work will replace 2 7.5-ton air handlers and heat pumps, and hopefully get rid of the noise over my head here each evening. We are fortunate to get 4 bids for the project, with the lowest bid received from Comfort King in the amount of $24,431. It is therefore recommended that the replacement be performed by Comfort King. Replacement of the units was not budgeted for, and as a result, staff is requesting $30,000 from the general fund for unforeseen expenditures to complete the project, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this item.
Any questions about HVAC?
Well, I do, kind of.
Yes, okay, go right ahead.
Maybe I just forgot, but was this, whatever happened with Johnson Controls, was this part of that?
Yeah, I can address that. Yes, it was. That we've been focusing on the solar project, and so we haven't got to this piece of it yet. This was part of the, you recall, the lighting and HVAC units. So these 2 units will simply be removed from that project if and when we determine that the financing is sufficient. If you recall, when we brought those projects to you, they didn't really pencil out. But we thought we wanted to try to pursue them anyway because, for this reason, we knew that these units were old and they were going to go out soon. So with this, we'll be paying for them outright. We do still have other units such as at City Hall and the police station, and is that it, Steve? Those are the main ones, I think.
Yeah, and City Hall.
And City Hall, yeah, that we will still look at going forward, but.
Didn't we replace one at police station?
We did replace a smaller one, I believe, at the police station a year ago or so, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but not all of them.
But not all of them. And
yeah.
They're not as efficient as we would like.
Right.
So, Steve, I wanted to ask you a question. I always get a little uneasy when I see the difference in the bids. So I know you went through this thoroughly, but there's such a kind of a huge gap, and I'm just wondering why.
I think that we've had a long working relationship with Comfort King, and they've done the service on this building, so that may have played into the bid. I compared the warranties; they're similar, and so this is a stopgap measure, and we wanted to go with the low bid just to get heat in the building. It really is an emergency type situation. We don't have any heat upstairs for a lot of our special interest classes, and we've been fortunate with the weather. It's been mild, but so this was kind of an emergency measure.
And I appreciate that, but I just, like I say, wanted to be sure we, this is a lot of money to invest, and I just want to do it right. Is this going to alleviate the loud noise that we have? I mean, are we going to be able to have these going on at our meeting and be able to hear each other talk?
That's an extremely high priority, especially since I sit right underneath the air duct. So, yeah, we'll make every effort to get that rectified.
I just wonder if that's being addressed. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Tell them our problem.
About how old were the units that we have failed, approximately?
Believe it or not, they're the original. They're 25 years old.
Oh, well, Jiminy Christmas, okay.
Yeah, we've been patching them together
it's
as
time.
long as we possibly can, and we've reached the end.
Yes,
Well,
okay.
I think you'll.
And you
our-
hear
our-
the one lone one struggling to keep going.
And
Well,
our-
that one actually, will it?
That one actually is a little better shape, or
Okay.
I would have thrown it into the mix also,
Okay,
but
okay.
And I'm sure our electric bill is going to be decreased a bit,
Right.
too.
a bit.
Yeah, okay. Would anybody from the public like us to not, or would want us to heat and cool this building in an appropriate fashion?
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville. This does not fall under Measure H&L. However, it seems to me like at our budget hearings this last year, when we were putting them together, that these HVAC systems were part of the budget hearings and they got postponed again. And when we do that, it seems like the cost jumps. Instead of being able to plan and do these things in a staged manner so that they actually get taken care of, Johnson Controls notwithstanding, it seems like our HVAC systems, we know when it's getting to be 25 years old that these are not going to last forever. And when we delay these in the budget and say, okay, we'll defer maintenance, deferred maintenance is no maintenance. When we defer these things and don't address them at the budget time, they come back to bite us, just like this one has. So I'd like to see us, when we go through our budget this year, to be very careful that we make sure as we can be, that we don't defer something that's going to come back to bite us.
Thank you. And anybody else wish to comment on this item? Okay, thank you.
John, it wasn't it because of that this was included in the Johnson control.
I think we thought the
Is that,
Johnson.
this had, it wasn't an individual thing that we rejected.
It was part of the
all
Johnson
part of the
control.
Johnson control thing.
And yes, I would agree that having some sort of more sort of scheduled sort of replacement of these items are good. That's one of the reasons why you have contingency funds. I mean, you do have contingency funds, not just to have them, but to use them. in
No,
case
but
it
we
happens.
thought this was going to be taken care of through
Yeah.
that.
I guess the one point, and I'm not sure whether it's true or not, would be if we had said, we're going to set aside $30,000 to do this, pick a number out of the air, that we could have maybe gotten a better price by that. And
I don't think so.
that I do not know, because we would have gone to bid just like this. We would have gotten bids on it. You know, I guess if the bids had come in crazy, then we might have spent more time talking about it. But anyway, those are excellent points, and we're coming up in the budget process, and we'll be talking about this kind of stuff on other parts of our empire here in a little later. Okay, so
I move for approval of the,
okay, I will second that. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Borelli?
aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
All right. Okay, woo. Council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority.
Well, we're going to purchase 5 new buses.
Wow, that's a lot of buses.
It is.
How much money are they going to charge?
A lot, and they had to do some kind of negotiating. I mean, the way they're working it out to get all 5 of them instead of 2 or 3 at a
Okay.
time.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. El Dorado County Transportation Commission. You
That,
probably remember to bring the yellow.
I did. I brought my little yellow thing, and I think of interest to
Horrible.
probably what people
Yeah.
would be. We talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
We did. We supported the same things that we did here. The SB 1.
SB 1 and 69.
And 69.
Yeah.
They agreed to send a letter of support. One of the things and then we also talked about the Western Placerville Exchange, and that was one of the things I wanted to thank, and I remembered it now, Rebecca Neves for sending out the weekly reports on the Placerville. Those are really good, and I think the public appreciates it. We also talked about wait a minute. You know, the hotspots. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, they talk constantly to me about Highway 50 and the congestion, and so I just wanted to reiterate that the Caltrans and the county and the city are meeting, and they're working on it, and they call it a hotspot study. So that is ongoing. Hopefully we're going to find some.
Well, and I think the important thing about the hotspot study is that they will actually be holding meetings about the Highway 50 issues here in Placerville, and I believe it will also include Apple Hill. That's our hotspot. And they will be doing public meetings specifically about that here probably here.
But it also entails more than just
it goes from here.
We're called the hotspot, but they're doing the whole Highway 50.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the
other hotspots include, I believe, the summit near Sierra Ski Ranch. That's an issue. Myers is an issue, and there was one other one, I think, where along Highway 50 where they have hotspots. So anyway, but
it's called Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and it's District 3 Recreation Travel Hotspot Transportation Management Study. That's the official.
Yeah. But the one we're worried about is here in town. So there'll be public meetings, and we'll be able to talk about all sorts of things and potential issues, remedies, conceptual things, that sort of stuff, costs, which are staggering. So that's that. LAFCO, Mark. Oh, no, he's not here. Okay, I'm sure it was very exciting. Whatever they did at LAFCO, if they did anything, was very exciting. SACOG, we did not have a board meeting. That's next week. We did have a government relations and public or planning and administration meeting. And the one thing that I want to, and I talked about this before, and it's how to engage youth to get them engaged in public service, essentially, to expose them to the work in public service. For example, like our very capable folks that work for us here at the city, as well as this side of the dais and how we do what we do. And they had some presentations once again, very interesting discussions. I forwarded some information to the mayor and to Mr. Morris, and I think we'll start to noodle around with that. We need to go find out kind of what's going on up here first with youth and getting them interested in these things and showing them that there is actually valuable work in public service and it can be fun. So anyway,
just read where Caltrans has 10,000 job openings.
Oh yeah, if you want to go work for Caltrans and you can find, I think if you can spell Caltrans, you can maybe get a job. So no, but they're hiring lots of people, and well, the same thing that there is everywhere. What did they say? The baby boomers are terming out, which is just creepy, but yeah, and so that's happening in all these public agencies, and so it's an opportunity for younger folks. My son is a policeman because policemen are retiring right now that are older. So anyway, very cool stuff. I'm kind of blathering here, but I'll bring back something less blathery in the not too distant future that we can talk about. We did not have a 2x2 meeting yet, so that's it for that. Request for future agenda items. Request for future agenda? Do you have a request?
I don't.
Do you have a request for a future agenda item?
How are we doing on the evacuation request that I've had for
ever?
We're working on that. That won't be part of a council meeting, but it'll be part of this exercise that Chief and I have been talking about, and we're working on with the county also to help us do that. So that we're looking at June is when that would come up.
So, but we will be part of the mix.
The council? Yeah. Oh yes, okay. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So.
This is not a request for an agenda item, but I should have mentioned this earlier. We are having a workshop about cannabis.
Oh, that's right.
Tomorrow here at 6 o'clock. It's basically to kind of sort of establish a baseline of information and get some things out on the table. It is open to the public. It hasn't been highly advertised. There will be more discussions if this thing is moved forward. There will be more discussions about it off in the future. We had to have a starting point, and so tomorrow night is it. I encourage all of you to show up and tell us what you think. City manager and staff reports.
Mayor, could I?
Yes.
Hopefully this is appropriate. I know that I met with Vice Mayor Acuna this morning, and he, I know, wanted to request that an item be brought back regarding Peak and their discussion of how they are doing, maybe a kind of a summary, and maybe some talking about some future direction for them. So if it's all right, I'll mention that for him, and we can look at a future agenda item for that.
Well, that's an interesting thought, because we're having our thing next week on the 19th. Our
workshop.
And that seems like something we would want to talk about at our workshop, potentially.
Right.
Okay, so
we can talk about
okay,
that.
And then maybe
anyway, I just
bring
wanted to
it back
bring it up because
okay.
he brought it up with me. So, yeah.
Speed survey report for Marine Drive, Chief Ortega.
Chief, Mayor, before he brings that up, I just want to mention quickly, we have this on here, not so much to highlight what Maureen Drive looked like, but I wanted him to show this to you, to show the capabilities that we have of our speed survey trailer, and this is something they've been working on. I want to thank the chief for doing that. So this is just a quick report to show you kind of what we can get in these reports. So,
Great,
Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cleve and Mr. Mayor. I'm going to see if the technology works real well here. Basically, there was a complaint, I guess a couple council meetings ago I missed. But what we did is we figured out some more of the capabilities available on our traffic trailer. So if I can get this to go to full screen here, this will be better. There we go. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to fit unless I go, let me see if I can zoom it down. All right, I'm just going to go through this the way it looks. Okay. Basically, this was put out on Maureen Drive from March 28th to April 4th. It was up there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as you can see by the chart here, the green and yellow bars represent people that are in the green are compliant with the speed limit, which is 25 miles an hour. It's a residential zone. The gold means they're approaching being violators, but there were no violators here. Go down a little bit. This is the time of the day when people were speeding or not speeding. Again, 24 hours a day, and it's kind of self-explanatory there. The green is the speed limit, the green straight line across. The average speed, 50% of the speed and 85% of the speed. So I was very happy to see that we have a compliant city in this particular case, and we were able to answer to our complainant. And this was shared by Pierre Rivas to the complainant, the original complainant, that we didn't have a speed problem on this street. This is just a bunch of data that I'm not really going to try to explain because it's just for math whizzes, and that's not me. So that might be you, Councilman Clarici, but not me. But basically, this capability is available, so in the future, when we get these types of problems or complaints, we can put this out here. We can't do every street in the city, I'll just qualify that, but when we get enough complaints, we're happy to put that out, and we're happy to report back to the citizens of when a problem does or does not exist. If it does exist, we obviously take enforcement action, but in this case, it really didn't.
Okay.
Any questions?
I have a question. Okay, so what is this? I should know the answer to this question, but I don't. What does this thing look like?
It's just your classic traffic trailer, and it'll show your speed as you're approaching it. Okay. And as you approach, it'll blink if you're going too fast. Okay. If you're compliant, like I'm sure you are, Mr. Clarici, there's no doubt in my mind.
All the time.
Then it will just show that your speed as you're going, and it clocks every car that goes and records. Somewhere in this report, I believe it was over 4,000 cars were measured here.
Okay.
On this.
So because I'm curious, is there a a bias? So if you see, and I guess what I'm asking is, how does this thing really work? Because if you're driving and you see this thing, do you slow down? and does it make a difference? Or if you're speeding, it says you're speeding and then it clicks you're speeding, even if you might slow down to the speed limit, does it still record? Or is it like when you pass this thing, that's the speed that you're going at?
It does it as, I know, as you're approaching. Now you're getting into the real scientific stuff that I can't answer all of it.
Okay.
But I know that as you're approaching it is when it first starts clocking you.
Oh, okay.
As far as compliance goes, and do people like ignore the speed limit if that's not there? To be very honest, what I've seen in Placerville is people are pretty compliant in this city. I mean, I'm just going to say that. Every now and then they'll go too fast. Every now and then somebody will roll through a light or a stop sign. But we don't have a big traffic issue here.
Right.
And in this particular case, I believe that they would be compliant in this area even if the thing wasn't there. I actually went and sat there for 20 minutes after another complaint came in on this street in my black, boring-looking car and didn't see anybody speeding. And it was a weekday during kind of commute hours.
Okay.
So.
Well, yeah, it obviously, the traffic picks up obviously
Sure.
around 6 or 7, and then it's pretty consistent across there. And that's actually, are those numbers reliable, engineer, in terms of like AADT or whatever, that hourly rate? Because we talked about that on Green Valley Road.
Yes.
I think the number was the same, wasn't it?
So the speed trailer does an effective job of measuring and counting cars, but we also have some traffic counters too that we utilize. We
Okay.
actually just utilize those for Clay Street too.
Okay, cool.
Engineering is going to be meeting with PD, I believe, next week to discuss a list of streets that we're going to go through for speed survey for us.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. It's one of those things where we really need to get that out in front of the public to show them what we're doing. Because, and I guess my last question will be, how did the gentleman that you reported to take the information that there was, in fact, no speeding problem?
Mr. Mike Butterfield was very, very appreciative.
Oh, good.
And probably we both surmised that maybe he saw one errant vehicle that was speeding, but for the most part, at least the time that I was talking with him, maybe 2 vehicles had gone by, both traveling very, very slow. So our observations from both of us were there really wasn't any speeding on that speed.
That's very cool. Well, thank you very much. It's good to have that follow through. It's funny. I will bore you with some of my history back in the day, and at the Gold Discovery State Park, the superintendent there was convinced that people were speeding, and he wanted to. I mean, the speed limit was 25 miles an hour, and even then it was 25 miles an hour through the park until you got to the edges of it. And he was convinced people were speeding, and so they actually did some very low, like probably just the things, the traffic counter type things to see how fast people were going. And it turned out that actually the average speed through the park was 17.5 miles an hour. And they weren't speeding. In fact, very few people
That
sped.
stretch is real easy, though, to break that.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt. Well, maybe for you, but not for me. I always go.
Oh,
the speed
because
limit.
you're so.
That's right. Anyway, but the point is that frequently people think that people are going a lot faster than they actually are.
It is.
And so, anyway, just an anecdotal story. I will stop bothering you with that. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's actually very cool, and I love the fact that we have that technology, and thank you for being responsive, and thank you for being responsive as well. And the more of that we do to show folks that we care and that we actually do look into these things, the more likely they'll think that we're not stupid. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting, and this is,
Obviously, we're not going to do them all.
I don't know if that's obvious or not. April 24th, include parking ordinance, Title VI program, Sierra Tank Bypass EID agreement, Union Mine High School sports presentation, defensible space presentation, proclamation honoring Police Memorial Week, SB1 project list, Broadway sidewalks design contract award, Placerville Drive bridge project, lighting and landscaping maintenance district, intent to levy, Schnell School pressure reducing valve, Placerville Station 2 utility agreements, Drake Haglin and Associates amendment to agreement, Western Placerville Interchange Phase 2 contract change order number 1, and the Farmers Market agreement. That is one heck of an agenda. We should probably bring our jammies with us. Okay. Anything else? Do you have anything else?
I don't.
You don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, great. I have nothing else. Thank you so much. This has been a joy. Next time you'll return back to sanity and the regular mayor and vice mayor will be here. Go home. Go
Just a
home.
reminder, you're adjourning actually to tomorrow night. And
Oh, we're
then-
adjourning.
and then-
That's right. I'm sorry.
And then again on the 19th,
there's
we
nobody
have your
here
workshop.
anymore. We're
so.
adjourning to our
Just
workshop.
a reminder, yes.
We're adjourning to our workshop tomorrow at 6, and then to the 19th at
8 o'clock
8 o'clock.
And Cleve,
Are there gonna be-
a meeting for the Amgen?
tomorrow
Are they-
at 10. Oh, didn't you? I'm sorry.
Are we going to have donuts and coffee here?
Yep.
Okay, good.
And lunch.
And lunch.
10 o'clock here at 10.
Upstairs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
If you
Thank
can
you very
make it,
much.
yeah.
Go home, everybody.